Reddit stories.
Tell us a story that shocked you when you were living with your boyfriend. Story 1. The Invisible Mess and the Psychology of the Kitchen Jenga. I've been living with my boyfriend, Jake, for about 6 months now. Before we moved in, I had this vision of our life together, cozy dinners, shared chores, and a clean, aesthetic apartment. Well, reality hit me like a bag of unwashed gym socks. I've discovered that Jake possesses a very specific, almost scientific superpower, selective domestic blindness. It's not that he's lazy, he's actually a hard worker, but it's like his brain physically deletes images of clutter from his retinas. It started with the laundry. I decided to run a little social experiment. One Tuesday, I left a basket of clean, dry clothes right on his side of the bed. It wasn't just a hint, it was a physical barricade. To get into bed, he had to physically interact with it. Do you know what he did? He didn't fold them. He didn't even move the basket to the floor. For 3 straight nights, I watched this man perform a tactical maneuver where he would climb over the basket and then sleep in a curved C shape around it like some kind of human shrimp. On the 4th day, I couldn't take it. I asked, Jake, honey, are you planning on doing anything with that basket? He looked at me with the most genuine, innocent confusion I've ever seen and said, oh. I thought that was just where the basket lives now. I didn't want to mess up your new organization system. My system? Since when is blocking 40% of the mattress's system? We ended up having a 20-minute debate about the definition of putting things away. To him, if it's not on the floor, it's away. To me, if it's in a basket on the bed, it's a cry for help. Then there's the kitchen trash. We have a standard-sized bin. Normal human beings take it out when it's full. Jake? Jake plays kitchen Jenga. He will balance a greasy pizza box, 3 empty soda cans, and a banana peel on a pile that is already 6 inches above the rim of the bin. It's a structural masterpiece. He'll walk past it 10 times a day, and even when a stray grape rolls off the top and onto the floor, he just looks at it like it's a fallen soldier and keeps walking. I once asked him, "Does the trash not bother you?" And he replied, "I was waiting for it to reach critical mass." Critical mass. Like it's a nuclear reactor. He actually argued that taking it out too early is inefficient. I told him that waiting until the trash starts communicating with us is also inefficient for my mental health. But the final boss of living with a guy? The bathroom mirror. How does one person produce that much toothpaste splatter? Every single morning, I find fresh white speckles all over the glass. It looks like a Jackson Pollock painting made of minty fresh regret. I once cleaned it perfectly and put a sticky note saying I can see you on the spot where his face reflects. When I came home, he had just moved the sticky note to the corner because it was blocking his view of his beard while he was, you guessed it, splattering more toothpaste. I've realized that for men, clean doesn't mean sanitized, it just means there are currently no active fires or rodent infestations in this immediate area. Living together is a constant negotiation between my need for a home and his satisfaction with a cave. Story 2. The 5 Minutes Time Warp and the War Cries. Before I moved in with my boyfriend, I thought his gaming was a cute little hobby. I pictured him sitting quietly with a controller, maybe a few pew-pew sounds. I was wrong. I moved in with a professional scream therapist who moonlights as a Call of Duty player. Let's talk about the war cries. I'll be in the other room, peacefully reading a book or trying to work, when suddenly the walls start shaking. He's on the roof. He's one shot. Bro, revive me. What are you doing? The first time it happened, I genuinely thought a SWAT team was breaking into our apartment. I ran into the living room, heart pounding, adrenaline spiking, ready to call the police, only to find him sitting there in his ergonomic chair, wearing a headset, screaming at a 12-year-old in Denmark who just no-scoped him. I stood there, panting, and said, "I thought you were dying." He didn't even turn around. He just waved a hand and said, "Not now, babe, the zone is closing." I stood there for a full minute, contemplating my life choices, while he yelled at Noob Master 69 for not throwing a smoke grenade. But the most shocking thing about living with a gamer is the 5-minute time warp. This is a scientific phenomenon where my boyfriend says the phrase "I'll be out in 5 minutes, babe," and then enters a different dimension where time moves 10 times slower. In gamer minutes, 5 minutes is actually enough time to play 3 full matches, have a heated argument with a stranger about weapon skins, order a pizza, and completely forget that we were supposed to be at my parents' house for dinner an hour ago. Last Saturday was the breaking point. We had reservations for 7 p.m. At 6:30, I was dressed, makeup done, shoes on. I asked, "Are you ready?" He said, "Just one more round, 5 minutes tops." At 6:50, he was still screaming about flanking the enemy. At 7:15, I went in and saw he hadn't even put on pants yet. I've tried everything. I've tried standing in front of the TV. He just leans his head to the side like a curious dog. I've tried turning off the Wi-Fi, but he looked so betrayed, like I'd personally unplugged his life support, that I felt too guilty to do it again. Now, I've started my own girlfriend time. If he says he's almost done, I start a 12-step skincare routine, put on a face mask, and start a new series on Netflix. By the time he finally emerges from the war zone looking like he's aged 5 years, I'm usually halfway through an episode. He'll say, "Ready to go?" And I'll just point at my green clay mask and say, "5 more minutes, babe." I'm just finishing my level of exfoliation. The look of pure, confused realization on his face is the only thing that keeps me from throwing the console out the window. Story 3. The grocery store vibe shopping and the mustard collection. I grew up in a household where grocery shopping was a tactical mission. You make a list, you go to the store, you stick to the perimeter, you buy what's on the list, and you leave. It's logical. It's efficient. My boyfriend, Mark, however, views the grocery store as a mystical journey of self-discovery. For him, a trip to the supermarket is like an episode of an adventure reality show where the goal is to buy everything except what we actually need. Last Tuesday was the breaking point. We were completely out of the basics. I sent him to the store with a very simple, bulleted list of 3 items: eggs, milk, and bread. I even texted him a photo of the specific brand of bread I like. Simple, right? An hour passes. Then 90 minutes. I'm thinking, maybe there was a massive line? Or maybe he got lost in the frozen food aisle? Finally, he crawls through the door carrying 4 heavy reusable bags. I'm thinking, oh, maybe he was being proactive and bought extra supplies for the week. My hero. No. He starts unpacking. The first thing out of the bag? A 5-pound bag of frozen vegetable pot stickers. We don't have room in our freezer for a bag of ice, let alone 200 dumplings. Next. A professional-grade stainless steel whisk. Mark doesn't bake. He doesn't even know how to make scrambled eggs without burning the pan. Then comes a novelty cactus in a ceramic pot shaped like a cowboy boot. And finally, 3 different bottles of expensive, artisanal hot sauce. "Mark," I said, staring at the cowboy cactus, "where are the eggs?" He looked at me with total, heartbreaking sincerity and said, "Babe, I went to the dairy aisle, but the vibes were just off. The eggs looked sad. Like, they didn't have that fresh from the farm energy. But look at this cactus. It has so much personality. It looks like it's judging our kitchen decor." I named him Barnaby. I spent 10 minutes explaining that Barnaby cannot be fried and put on toast. But it doesn't stop there. Since we moved in, I've discovered that Mark has a collector mentality for the weirdest things. We currently have 5 jars of mustard in the fridge. 5. All different brands, all opened, and all 90% full. Why? Because every time he sees a new label with a picture of a mountain or a fancy French name, he thinks, maybe this is the one. Maybe this mustard will change my life. Meanwhile, we haven't had actual table salt in the house for a week. I'm currently seasoning our dinner with the tears of my frustration and a dash of honey Dijon truffle-infused madness. I've realized that if I want a specific meal, I have to go myself. If I send Mark, we might end up with a gourmet cheese platter and a set of barbecue tongs for a grill we don't own, but we will definitely be eating air for breakfast. Living with him is like being the manager of a very chaotic, very expensive gift shop. Story 4. The grocery store vibe shopping and the mustard collection. When you're dating and living separately, cuddling in bed sounds like the peak of romance. In movies, couples sleep in a perfect, aesthetic embrace, looking peaceful and cool under the sheets. In reality, living with a man is like sleeping next to a running jet engine that is also actively trying to steal your clothes in the middle of the night. The first shocker after we moved in was the heat. My boyfriend is a human furnace. I'm convinced his blood isn't actually blood, it's just circulating lava. In the middle of the night, if his leg even accidentally brushes against mine, I wake up sweating like I've just run a marathon in a sauna. I've had to buy cooling technology pillows, special breathable sheets, and a high-powered fan that sounds like a helicopter taking off, but it doesn't matter. He radiates heat at a level that should probably be regulated by the Department of Energy. I'll try to create a no-fly zone in the middle of the bed using a long-body pillow, but somehow, in his sleep, he migrates. He's like a heat-seeking missile. He will find the one cold spot on my side of the bed and occupy it until I'm backed up against the very edge of the mattress, hanging on for dear life. But the real crime, the one that makes me consider sleeping on the sofa, is the great blanket heist. My boyfriend is what I call a tactical burrito sleeper. He starts the night perfectly normal, lying flat on his back. But around 2 a.m., something shifts in his subconscious. He performs a slow, methodical, 360-degree roll. With every inch he turns, he wraps more of the duvet around his body. By 3 a.m., he is a cozy, warm, down-feather cocoon, and I am lying there in the dark, shivering, clutching a single, pathetic corner of the sheet like a survivor of a shipwreck in the North Atlantic. One night, I actually woke up because I was so cold I could see my own breath. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but it felt like it. I tried to gently tug a bit of the blanket back. He didn't even wake up, but he gripped the fabric with the strength of 1,000 Norse gods. He let out this tiny, pathetic whimper in his sleep, like I was trying to steal his soul. I actually felt guilty. I let him keep it and spent the rest of the night wearing 2 pairs of socks and a hoodie. We now have a 2-blanket policy. We have 2 separate duvets on one bed. It's not romantic, it doesn't look like the Pinterest bedrooms I dreamed of, and it makes making the bed a nightmare, but at least I don't wake up with hypothermia. If you're planning on moving in with your boyfriend, skip the fancy candles and buy a second blanket. It will save your relationship. One night, I actually woke up because I was so cold I could see my own breath. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but it felt like it. I tried to gently tug a bit of the blanket back. He didn't even wake up, but he gripped the fabric with the strength of 1,000 Norse gods. He let out this tiny, pathetic whimper in his sleep, like I was trying to steal his soul. I actually felt guilty. I let him keep it and spent the rest of the night wearing 2 pairs of socks and a hoodie. We now have a 2-blanket policy. We have 2 separate duvets on one bed. It's not romantic, it doesn't look like the Pinterest bedrooms I dreamed of, and it makes making the bed a nightmare, but at least I don't wake up with hypothermia. If you're planning on moving in with your boyfriend, skip the fancy candles and buy a second blanket. It will save your relationship. Story 5. The Tragedy of the Man Cold and the Final Farewell. I've seen my boyfriend, Dave, do some pretty tough things. He goes to the gym and deadlifts heavy weights, he's finished grueling 12-hour shifts without complaining, and he once helped his friend move a piano up 3 flights of stairs. He's a tough guy. But then, it happens. The man cold. It starts with a single, innocent sneeze. He'll stop what he's doing, look at me with wide, fearful eyes, and whisper, "I think it's happening. I'm going down, babe. Remember me." The shock of living with a guy is seeing how quickly a mild head cold can turn into a 5-act Shakespearean tragedy. Within 2 hours of his first sniffle, Dave was wrapped in 3 different blankets on the couch, watching Lord of the Rings for the 10th time, and asking if I could make him that special soup with the specific tiny noodles. I don't even know where to buy tiny noodles. "Babe," he whispered hoarsely, reaching out a trembling hand as I walked past, "can you check my forehead? I think I'm burning up. This might be the big one." I checked. His forehead was perfectly cool. I used the thermometer, 36.6 degrees. Medical perfection. I told him he was fine and that he just needed to hydrate. He groaned, a deep, soul-shattering sound that resonated through the entire apartment, and said, "The thermometer must be calibrated for healthy people. I can feel my internal organs slowly shutting down. Can you get me the orange Gatorade? Not the red one. The red one tastes like defeat." For the next 3 days, I wasn't his girlfriend. I was his full-time nurse, personal chef, and emotional support animal. I had to bring him tea at specific temperatures, fluff his pillows every 30 minutes, and listen to him describe what it was like back when he could breathe through both nostrils. He looked at a photo of himself from a week ago and sighed, "I was so young then. So full of life." The most frustrating part? On the 4th day, I actually caught the cold from him. My head was pounding, my throat was on fire, and I was exhausted. Did I get a blanket and a movie marathon? No. I was still doing the laundry, taking out the trash, and making the tiny noodle soup. Meanwhile, Dave, now fully recovered and glowing with health, walked into the kitchen, grabbed a protein shake, and said, "Yeah, that was a rough one, wasn't it? I'm glad my superior immune system pushed through. You should try some ginger, you look a bit tired." I love him to death, but the next time he sneezes, I'm not grabbing the soup. I'm grabbing my suitcase and moving into a hotel until the national emergency has passed. So, please give us a like and subscribe. You can also share your story in the comments. See you next time.